All right, let's talk with the president of Convention of States Action, Victory News contributor Mark Meckler. Okay, Mark, the Dobbs decision threw the abortion issue back to the states. You just heard Greg report on the Georgia Supreme Court overturning that lower court ruling. Are we looking at continuing state-by-state battle for the unborn? And what can we do to fight for the right to life at the state level?
Yeah, I do think we're going to continue to see this kind of litigation work its way up through the state courts. I think this is going to take quite a few years to shake itself out. And in this case, the litigation really surrounds about the time that this law was passed 3 years ago is pre-Dobbs. So the judge said, well, it's not valid because you didn't have Dobbs back then. That's not a correct way to rule on the law. So I think this is going to work its way through the courts, and that law is ultimately going to be upheld. What we can do is you and I can do what we've been doing for many years, which is to continue to be fighting for life in every way we can, but specifically in the public narrative. That's our job.
Didn't most of these states that passed these bills, didn't they have trigger laws that went into effect when Roe was overturned?
They did, but this was not passed as a trigger law. This was actually passed as a law that was intended to go into effect a few years ago. This is one of the cases that I think was passed, intended to make its way up to the Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade. It ended up kind of stuck in the dockets over the last few years, so now it's being recycled, so to speak.
Mark, the border battle is heating up with Republicans ready to take over the House. What must Republicans do to get the border secure, and should the border states push even harder to take action in their respective states?
I'm going to start with the latter first, which is yes, the border states should push harder. We shouldn't expect that from Katie Hobbs in Arizona for sure. We should expect it from Greg Abbott in Texas. Unfortunately, looks like what Abbott's done is just more pro forma language and not real action to secure the border. So we need to see the states do that. But I think Congress can do it too. Remember, they have the power of the purse. They control the budget for the border and pretty much everything else. And they're going to have to exercise that budget in a very muscular way if they're to get anything done.
All right, big surprise here. There seems to be some confusion at the White House about whether or not Joe Biden is directly involved with the negotiations between the railroads and the unions. Take a look at this.
My team has been in touch with all the parties, in rooms with the parties, and I have not directly engaged yet because they're still talking.
I could say this. He's been directly involved since before there was even a tentative agreement, right? So that has not stopped. The president has been kept abreast as to what is happening, and he has been directly involved because he understands how important it is to make sure that we do not have a rail shutdown.
Mark, this seems to be an ongoing thing at this White House. Which is it? Do they think they'll figure this out before Christmas?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, and it really is kind of sad, I don't think the president knows whether he's directly involved or not. I don't think he remembers what happened yesterday, maybe what happened 20 minutes ago. So he may not be involved. Even if he is involved, that's kind of scary because I don't think he actually knows what's going on.
Mark, this is Greg. It looks like Joe Biden will press for a ban on so-called assault weapons before Republicans take control of the House in January. Will Democrats be successful in eroding the Second Amendment by then?
Look, no, it's going to be found to be unconstitutional. We have got recent case law here, the Bruin case and other cases that are going to rule ultimately that if it'll make its way to the Supreme Court, that'll be overturned even if they get it done. They may do it as a matter of fundraising and to please the base, but it will be overturned if they do it.
Mark, give us a quick update on the work of Conventions of State Action and what you're doing and how we can find out more about what you're doing.
Yeah, we're busy all over the country getting ready for legislation and resolutions in the next session. We've passed in 19 states already. We probably have 6 or 7 that are real serious as we head into the next session. So if folks want to get involved in that and calling a convention, proposing amendments to restrain federal tyranny, they can do that at conventionofstates.com.
Is there one particular amendment that you're looking at that would call for a convention or that you would use to call for a convention if you have the numbers?
Yeah, there's a resolution. It has 3 particular subject matter areas. One is they can discuss anything that would take fiscal power away from the federal government, force them to rein their fiscal house in. 2, anything that would propose term limits. And 3, anything that would remove power, scope, and jurisdiction from the federal government.
Very interesting. And we encourage people to find out about this. This is the way the Constitution was designed to amend. It wasn't designed to do this through the courts. And I'm so appreciative of what you're doing, Mark. Thank you. Back to you in just a moment. All right, before we go, let's bring in Mark Meckler one last time. Mark, there it is. The revelations of the COVID vaccine experience continue to emerge. Along the way, we've lost our rights. Do you see any chance of us regaining them?
Well, I do. The only chance is for the people to rise up against this stuff. And one way, Greg, I would say is we shouldn't buy into their language. Language is one way they control us. This is not a vaccine. It doesn't serve as a vaccine in any way. It doesn't keep you from getting the disease. It doesn't keep you from spreading the disease. This is just a shot of some chemicals they inject into your body. We need to rise up and refuse the language and the shots themselves.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because the Republicans are vowing that there are going to be investigations and hearings about Mayorkas and about Biden and Hunter, and that needs to happen. Should there be one with COVID and Fauci as well?
Yeah, I think not only should there be, but I believe there will be. Ron Johnson from Wisconsin has been reelected. I know him well. He's a great man. I'm glad to have him as a senator. And I know this is his cause. This is the thing that drives him more than anything else. He's going to dig in. He's going to find out what the government did and how many lives it costs. And he intends to hold people accountable. And I'm glad for that.
Okay, is this going to be seen as payback, all of these investigations, or do you think anything will come of them?
Yeah, I don't think anything will. Yeah, I don't think anything will necessarily come of them, because they usually don't of investigations. And by the way, if they're seen as payback, I actually think that's appropriate. If we're going to get to some sort of equilibrium where the government can actually function in Washington, D.C., then Republicans are going to have to learn to play the payback game. We can't have Republicans playing by one set of rules where their hands are tied and Democrats doing whatever they want. So whether it's payback or actual oversight, I think both are appropriate at this juncture.
Okay, well, it's going to be interesting. It'll be a fun year to watch what happens in Washington, because they have the power of the purse. And we'll just find out if there's going to be government shutdowns and all the other things. Mark Meckler, thank you, sir, for what you're doing and for taking time to be with us on this holiday weekend. Bless you and your family.
Thank you. God bless all of you.